This week on Muscle Car of the Week, we've got a car that's not only cool, it's got some historical significance. This is a 65 Shelby GT 350 R model that was used by the Carroll Shelby School of High Performance Driving. A really cool car. For Shelby fans, this car is unbelievable. It's got several storylines wrapped up in the course of its life cycle, and it is super cool to see that this car exists today. And we're going to unfurl some of these stories and let you know why this car is so unique. Basically, back in January of 1965, the first batch of GT350 cars were built to be street versions, street GT350, street legal, destined to be sold to the public. And these were to fill the homologation requirements which allowed these cars to be raced in SCCA racing. You had to build a certain number for public sale to be able to legally race. So this particular car was finished in that form, but it never went to a Shelby dealer and was never sold to the public. Instead, it left the Shelby plant and it went back to Ford in Michigan. And the Ford guys used it as a promotional car, did some public relations with it, did some demos with the car. But this car was never sold to the general public. In fact, in February of 1965, the car went back to Michigan, back to Ford Corporate, where they used it for some public relations stuff, some promotional events and things like that, and they held on to the car basically all summer in 1965. And by August, the car ended up going back to Shelby, where they put it into service as a driving school car. This was basically a car that they used on their track at Riverside to give the Shelby team drivers some seat time behind the wheel of a GT350. And there were 3 of these driving school cars built. This was one and 2 others. And what was interesting is that over time, this particular car started to evolve, right? In June of 1965, Shelby started production of the 36 GT350R cars. And those were the competition cars. They started off life as a completely stripped Mustang body, and they were built primarily to be race cars. So they didn't ever, they were never intended to be driven on the street. These were basically full race cars. And at the driving school, this particular car started to pick up some of those parts. So during the time at the driving school, the guys at Shelby realized that, this was pretty much a competition car already. So they completed the transformation and made it a full-fledged competition car and rebadged the VIN to be the 37th competition GT350 for 1965. It's very cool. This car started off life as a regular street GT350, but then was transformed by Shelby into a competition car. There are quite a bit of differences between a regular GT350 and the R model, and then this one too. The main one you notice is the rear window. This is the R model competition rear window. It's plexiglass, and it's got a slot cut out, and that allows the high pressure in the car to escape without blowing the window out. It also has these straps that keep it down and some tabs riveted in. And that was rumored to be worth about 5 miles an hour on a high-speed stretch. So it's cool looking and very functional. They've got an oversized fuel tank, which I think was made from 2 standard Mustang tanks that were welded together for increased capacity. There's a hood pin through the rear deck lid, which is race only. The riveted on rear window fillers, the side exit exhaust down here. Of course, it's got Goodyear Blue Streak racing tires. This one is completely devoid of any creature comforts inside. There's no window regulators. You've got a strap here that you can slide the window up and down. You can see the window frame is aluminum and welded together. And I think that saved about 25 pounds off the weight of the car. They've got no sound deadener. They've got no creature comforts. It's got competition gauges. It doesn't have the center pod that the normal street versions had. You've got full-on racing seats. There's no mat or anything on the floor. This is more of a racing mirror. This little bullet here, of course, is lettered up as the Shelby School of High Performance Driving instructor vehicle. The Kelsey Hayes disc brakes, another set of Goodyear Blue Streaks in front. They ran 15 by 7-inch wheels, so the front fenders are flared to accommodate the bigger wheels and bigger tires. They have the revised front geometry on the suspension, which you can see how low the car sits to the ground. Lowering it makes it look cool, but also made everything handle better by changing the pickup points on that front suspension. And when this one, you open the hood and there's no hood springs at all, there's no windshield wipers at all, of course there's no bumper in the front. It's an entirely new design, designed to bring cool air through the radiator and the competition oil cooler, as you see installed on this one, under the hood. They also had a high-rise intake manifold, a race-tuned 715 CFM Holley carburetor, a special set of Cyclone Tri-Y headers, and a different camshaft which bumped horsepower in the 350-360 range. It's just a bare-bones stripped version made to be as light as possible to be in our competition model car. But that's what makes it so cool, because so many people drove this at the Shelby driving school. You get some time behind the wheel in this, you can go race. And interestingly, by 1967, this car was used as the prototype for the big block 427 GT500 program that came out in 1967. So the car's got a very storied history. It was eventually sold by the Shelby guys without the 427 motor to a gentleman named Richard Rice, who raced it all up and down the California coast in SCCA events, and eventually blew up the motor and parked it. And it was found in 1988 in a garage in Fresno, California, and it was subsequently restored. You know, the question is, what do you restore it to? Do you restore it back to day one, where it was a GT350 street version, or do you make it a competition coupe? And they decided to kind of do both. It still retains all of its competition parts, but it was painted up to reflect the driving school days as a regular GT350. So it's a super unique story that it's got all these different histories built into one car. So when you have a car like this that's got all these crazy stories, you know, you have to have the proof to back it up. And one of the cool things about this car is all of the original body panel stampings are still there, proving that it's the same car that went through these transformations. There's also some magazine articles from '66 and '67 that show the car in use at the driving school. It was highly documented throughout the restoration, so they know that this is the real deal. You can find this car if you do research with Shelby's. It's actually on page 157 of the Shelby registry, and it's defined as a perfectly restored competition car, and the history is outlined a little bit. We're glad the Brothers Collection acquired this thing, because they certainly have an appreciation for all things Shelby, and they really love the fact that a lot of the big name drivers got to spend time in this car, and that's why they value it so much. And this car is more than just made to look like a race car. The way it's prepped right now, as it sits, it's ready to go hit the track. It's got current spec seat belts, it's got a fire system, the engine's tuned up and ready to rock. So this could be a legitimate race car if you wanted to go race today. Very cool. We'll have more pictures of it on our website at MuscleCarOfTheWeek.com. You can share this one with your friends on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and the videos are always on YouTube, and you can subscribe so you never miss one.